Hi, I'm Cassie Quistorf. I'm the Executive Director of Klamath Film. With me today is Alberta Poon, the writer and director of Crouching Comic. Alberta, thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for being a part of the Klamath Independent Film Festival.
Yeah, it's exciting. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, yeah. So can you just kind of take us through this film? What was the creative spark like and going all the way into filming and getting an actor and everything like that?
So I know I wanted to do a short film like loosely based on my experiences as an Asian American woman, like pursuing something creatively, because in real life I used to be in a band for a really long time, and then now I'm doing film, so it's like all these spaces dominated by white men, right?
Right.
So I'm friends with Katie Wen, the star of my film, who's a real life stand-up comic. She's actually super legit. She won the Portland Mercury's like funniest stand-up 2 years in a row, and then she won 2021's funniest person in Portland by the Willamette Week. So yes, so she's like a legit comic, and we've like collaborated on like smaller things in the past. So I knew I didn't want to base it on my life because I didn't want to do a band. It just seemed too complicated. I'm like, okay, I'm
Too
going to be
many
honest.
players,
I'm going
yeah.
to be honest. You know what I mean? Like money with small budget films. So I was like, oh, okay. Like I do comedy, but I'm not a stand-up comic, you know? So I feel like Katie's life makes more sense for a film. And it just so happened to be that the idea also happened to be like super more COVID safe to film
Right.
because we didn't need like all these extras and a band, and stand-up comic is like kind of like the solo thing. So I pitched her the idea. So I came up with like the general idea, but I wanted her to like come in as a co-writer to help write the stand-up bits. So that's how we wrote the film. Like I wrote the arc of the story, and then I kind of like guided her like um these are the points I think we should be like making in the stand-up bits, and like she had a lot to contribute as well. She's like an amazing writer. So that was the collaboration on the writing part. And we were going to try to like launch a Kickstarter in March of 2020.
Yep.
Yep, we all know what March of 2020 is. So we like were preparing everything. I'd done so much like work to like launch my first Kickstart. Like I had never done fundraising ever because
Wow.
I don't know, I'm just like scared of it, even though like I watch so many of my friends like make 10 to 15,000 from our community. And I just feel like no one's going to do that for me. So this is my first one. And remember, I was in a band for 10 years. We never raised money. Like we just never did it. I
Totally.
was like, okay, finally going to do it. COVID happened. We're like, we cannot ask people for money. Like
No.
we can't. Like that's crazy. Like everyone's so scared for their like lives right now and like their income and how they're going to support themselves. So we killed the Kickstarter. Unfortunately, I had raised or I had gotten one grant from RAC, the Regional Arts Culture Council, and it was a lot less money than we were hoping for. But the crew was like mostly my friends, and I just told them I was like, hey, you know, this is what I want to make. And oh, and I should make a this is probably important to know. The entire cast and crew, well, like 99%, was Asian Americans.
Wow.
So, because it was about an Asian American story, everyone was more than willing to like donate their time and talents to make this film. So basically all the grant money went to like the costs that needed to be there, like camera rental, grip rent, you know what I mean? Like all the things that like can't be free. So I had an amazing cast and crew that like basically volunteered their time to make this film with me. And it being like an all Asian cast and crew was something that I knew would be special, but it I can't even put into words like how special it actually was when we were doing it. Like everyone on set was like not only am I never in like all Asian American spaces, like ever, but let alone like doing something like this. You know, like Portland's very white. So it was like a like I'll never forget it. And I hope I can recreate that again at some point. But that was really special. And then okay, so then we started filming like 3 months, 3 or 4 months after COVID basically shut everything down. Kind of when we felt like kind of understood a little bit more, and our film seemed to be like kind of like this one man show
Mm.
situation. And then on our third day of filming was the West Coast fires blew in.
Ah, oh my gosh, and you persevered. And you
So
have a
okay, well, I
film.
mean, dude, I was like, is this a sign we shouldn't make this film? The 20th sign, the apocalypse. So literally, I mean, everyone should also remember this if you're from the Pacific Northwest. It was raining ash. The air was toxic. We couldn't be inside because of COVID, and we couldn't be outside because of it was it fortunately was the last day, like the first 2 days were fine, and it was the last day. It wasn't like we day one, it was only 3 days of filming, but
Right.
like thank God it was the last day because no one knew where to be because of the air quality. And then uh what was I gonna say? I don't remember. It was nuts. It was really wild.
That's insane. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And so you were able to finish filming in 3 days, and it was with COVID, with the fires blowing in.
Oh, I remember what I was gonna say.
Okay.
In the When the fires rolled in, the winds were whipping so hard, it knocked the power out while we were filming. And we were just like, we're never gonna get this. I mean, I think the producers ran and got generators,
Mhm.
but we were already like, we're so gonna push over a 12-hour day. It's gonna be like
Totally.
15, 16, because we lost power. Fortunately, power came back on. I don't think we used the generators, but still, it was a long day, and I thank my cast and crew for not leaving. In fact, people like didn't want to leave.
Oh.
People were like, because it was our last day together. We knew it was special, but like,
Yeah. Oh my gosh, what
yeah,
an amazing like community, and just like feeling that support though, and having such a great like cast and crew for this, wonderful film, and just like I don't know, getting to be a part of that. That's really, really neat and special. And yeah, thanks for sharing that story. That was
yeah.
just amazing. And here's the film on the other side of it too.
And I hope
So
people love it.
yeah. And so man, there's a lot to absorb there. I just love that story. But so you were a part of a band, so you've always been a creative. So that's kind of where the spark came. What kind of music did John play? Are you still in a band or?
I haven't played music in a while, but because I was in a band for so long, one of my favorite aspects of filmmaking is the sound design and music aspect, right? I
Yeah.
think, I mean, obviously a lot of directors care about it, but I think I like care about it more than I really, really care about sound design and music. I think it's one of the funnest parts to work on in the film. The type of band I was in, it kind of like it was like indie rock bands in the early aughts. So at first it was kind of like just like nonsense music, and then it kind of morphed into like Sonic Youth, Blonde Redhead, like post-punk type
Totally
stuff.
right on.
And then we like revamped completely, and we started making music that was like Italo disco. Yeah, like super,
Love.
super dancey music that would just like we
Oh
like
my
played
god.
house parties in Portland like every weekend where the cops would come and there's like so many kids they didn't even know what to do about it, you know? Like there's too many of us to like arrest.
Absolutely.
So
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
neat. Well, it's funny you mentioned that about the sound design, because we do have like, multi-tiered judging and selection committees. And we have one person who is always like very focused on the sound design and very focused on sound in a film, and it's almost always 99% of the time negative. But with Crouching Comment, he there was like the comment made like, the sound design was really good in this film, so
Oh,
they
yay!
can take
Yeah.
that away with you.
His name was Jordan Ubicio, and he's from Bend, and he's a super talented filmmaker himself. And like, I couldn't believe like I found an Asian American sound designer living in Portland or Oregon. So
Oregon. Yeah, that's amazing. Oh my gosh, wow, how neat. It just, man, it seems like everything kind of was working against you, but it all ended up working out. And
I mean, I kind of feel like that's like my brand in
yeah,
general. Is like everything is always working against. I mean, that's literally the point of the movie, right? It's like
right,
her mom's no one believes in this girl, not even like her own mom, due to like the cultural differences, right? Like West Coast, not West Coast, but Western
Western.
mentality versus like traditional Asian American, and in our case, Chinese American or Vietnamese, or not Chinese culture and Vietnamese culture versus like first gen, because Katie and I are both first gen Asian Americans, right?
Yeah,
So I guess that's like my brand, everything working against you, but like persevering. But you know what? I'm ready for everything to not be working against me. That's like
totally.
I'm ready to pivot into just like easygoing. I don't know if that's ever gonna happen though.
So, what was the reception of this film? Like, did you show it to your family and did you say, what was kind of that reception like?
I mean, it's kind of like your typical when you like see online when Asian Americans are like, like Everything Everywhere All at Once came out and they like, oh, I
Yes.
took my mom to it. And they're like, they like don't really like, they like see the wrong, okay, like for example, there's like this really funny viral story of like several people having the same story of bringing their mom to Everything Everywhere All at Once instead of like understanding like what we're trying to say is like first generation kids. It's like, oh, that daughter is not very grateful. You know what I mean? So it's like I didn't really expect like my family to like understand it, and like
Uh,
I don't remember what Katie's mom said. It's just I live, I don't know, if you're a first generation kid, I think you understand. You're just like, the whole point of this story, it's like meta, right? It's like there's this meta aspect of like the story of the girl. We all want as first generation kids for our parents to say I love you and to apologize. And we make films about it, right? Like when Everything Everywhere All at Once came out, I was like, holy shit, this is because people like us are finally getting a voice, and we all want our parents to apologize. And then Red Pant, what's it called? The
Red Panther.
Disney movie?
Yeah. Seeing red. Seeing red.
Yes.
Yes.
I
Yes.
watched that and I was like, holy shit, it's like it's always like the same theme.
Mhm.
And it's like when Asian Americans are starting to get a platform, I guess we're all trying to say the same thing, which I find really interesting, but it also like makes perfect sense. Like
Yeah,
there's just like this cultural difference, and you either love them or you hate them or both, but it's very complicated.
I'm sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Absolutely. Wow. Well, thank you so much for kind of sharing that with us. I'm sure it's really personal, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And Seeing Red, I listened to a podcast with the filmmaker, and that was just a fascinating story, also. So she's wonderful too.
Yeah. I love
But
interviews.
oh, so good,
So
so
good.
good. So what was your journey like going from musician to filmmaker? Were you trained in filmmaking? Like, how did that kind of come about?
Um, so I have been into filmmaking ever since I was a little kid because my dad was really into photography and he brought home like a VHS, like a giant camcorder when I was a kid. And he just like loved stuff like that. And since I had a camcorder at my disposal, I remember making like really silly skits as like in like elementary school and like junior high school. And I just loved it. I loved it so much that I remember taking all the classes I could, which wasn't many, right, offered back then. But I didn't pursue it as a career because it didn't seem possible.
Right.
It just didn't seem like someone like me could succeed in a field like that with like with no like role models to look up to, right? So I didn't pursue it even though like I really wanted to. So then I just like moved to the Pacific Northwest, bummed around being in a band for like a whole decade and wanted to be a rock star, but like I always like my first love was film and like even like with the band like making music videos. Like I always wanted to like oh, like I'll handle that and like come up with the idea or whatever. And then when the band broke up, one of the first things that I kind of like just fell back into naturally was I made a web series with my best friend called Scorpiono because we're both Scorpios and people are so judgmental of Scorpios. So we made a comedic web series that was like basically each episode so like yeah I like wrote, directed, starred in it. It was like everything, right? So
Wow.
it started off with like I would write like a super new agey horoscope, sounded all woo woo, but it like pretty much said exactly what was going to happen but like in a super woo woo language, and we would read our horoscopes and then the whole horoscope would play out. But I don't even know if people like picked up on that. Like I don't know
Huh.
because it sounded so woo woo, but it like
Yeah.
pretty much said what was going to happen.
Huh.
And so it was just this super ridiculous web series. It was kind of like sketch comedy, just about being like the themes were like pop culture, being a woman, um, just like really silly. Like I feel like I see the world very much like Larry David. So I like focus on something and
Mhm.
then I just like, oh, let's make a skit about that, you know? So
Yeah.
that was what Scorpiona was. So that was like my first foray back into film after not playing in a band. And I remember we made like 20 episodes. Some were like super short episodes where there was no horoscope. It was just like a super silly sketch. And then some were like 10 minutes where it was like the horoscope, the theme song, everything, like it was like a little show. So we made like 20 episodes and then with no money. And I remember a friend saying to me, it's crazy, Alberta. Everything you like talk about that you want to do, you like do. And I remember thinking, why is that weird? Why is that weird, right? And then it like got into my head because I've always just been like that, right?
Wow.
And I realized she was saying something like it was like the ultimate compliment that I didn't like really realize at the time, that a lot of people like want to do things, but they have fear or hesitations to do things. And and I was like, oh, I guess I like just barrel ahead when I have an idea without like thinking like without much I don't know, fear.
Nothing
Like
holding you back.
I do have
Yeah.
fear, but like don't get me wrong, but like so she said that and I remember thinking like, wait a minute, like I put so much work web into this web series that like takes a small crew to pull off with no money. Why don't I pursue this? Like why don't I pursue this? And so it was almost like a fully adult like career pivot, just being like, I'm just gonna go for it. Let's see what happens. And I took some classes at PCC, which were obviously like basically free because it's a community college. And Portland Community College has a really good film program.
Nice.
It's not just like a sad little thing. It's like legit, like a lot of people coming out of it like work. And my friend went through it and I like picked his brain and he was like, I think you should do it. So I did it and um it obviously wasn't like just the film program that like launched my career. It was a combination of, oh, there's like people who like want like here's a whole group of people that like want to do this for a living, including me. And I have all these connections from living at Portland for so long creatively. So I just like pretty much in 2018 just like put myself out there as like a filmmaker that can like make your music video or like make your brand content or whatever, or just like videography. Like I did everything, edit, videography. Directing wasn't coming at me hard, but then like, a music video, and then just one thing to another, to the next, to the next, to the next. And like 4 years, 3 years later, I was like directing spots for some of the biggest brands in the world.
Gosh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. So it was pretty cool. I mean, I still, more work could be knocking on my door. But like it's pretty cool to like set your sights on your dreams finally. Like I don't,
Yeah,
it's never too late, and
totally.
go for it.
Man, what an amazing story, Alberta. I'm just like living for it. That's amazing. And yeah, like you said, like that was such an ultimate compliment for someone to be like, recognize, like, oh my gosh, you just set your sights on something and you go for it. Like anything you talk about, you do. Like that's really amazing. And like, just, I don't know, I hope that really resonates with you because that is really, really cool and special for someone to do that. So,
Yeah, it
um,
was it was such a weird thing for someone to say to me in the moment, but I like haven't forgotten it since.
yeah.
Like I like almost like didn't understand what she was saying in the moment, and then now I'm like, wow, that was like such a nice thing to say to
Oh
me.
my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Alberta, we're almost out of time, but is there anything else you'd like to say about either your journey as a filmmaker or about Crouching Comic that you hope people take away or resonate with?
I just really hope that Crouching Comic, like, especially I think it's obviously for a wide audience, but I hope some Asian Americans like see it and are like, wow, like they feel seen, Um, that's really important to me. Like that's the type of work I want to make. So I hope people get a kick out of it, laugh, and feel seen.
Absolutely awesome. Well, Alberta, thank you so much for spending your time with us today and for also being a part of the Klamath Independent Film Festival.
Thank you.